Russian President Vladimir Putin recently offered effusive praise for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, commending his leadership for guiding India along an independent and sovereign path. Putin's remarks underscore a deep appreciation for Modi's stewardship, which he attributed to India's remarkable economic growth and its increasingly prominent standing on the world stage. The Russian leader went as far as to characterize the enduring ties between India and Russia as supranational, a descriptor that speaks to the profound historical trust, mutual respect, and shared strategic vision that have long underpinned their bilateral relationship. This strong affirmation from Moscow arrives at a particularly interesting juncture in international relations, occurring mere hours after a surprising telephone call between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi, during which Trump softened his previously critical stance on India's oil procurement deals with Russia. This sequence of events, with both major global powers, Russia and the United States, taking turns to spotlight Modi's leadership and India's growing influence, prompts a crucial question. Is India now emerging as a true pivot of global geopolitics, a nation whose strategic choice and economic trajectory will increasingly shape the international order? President Putin's laudatory comments about Prime Minister Modi were delivered with a significant emphasis on India's distinct approach to foreign policy and economic development. By highlighting India's independent and sovereign path, Putin was implicitly acknowledging and validating New Delhi's steadfast refusal to be drawn into the geopolitical rivalry of other major powers. This aligned perfectly with India's long-standing foreign policy doctrine of strategic autonomy, which prioritized national interests and allow India to engage with all countries based on merit, rather than ideological alignment. Putin's recognition of this independent stance is particularly noteworthy given Russia's own complex relationship with Western nations, suggesting a shared appreciation for self-determination in international affairs. Furthermore, Putin explicitly credited Modi's leadership for orchestrating record-breaking economic growth in India. This acknowledgement from the leader of a major global economy carries considerable weight, affirming the tangible success of India's economic policies under Modi's tenure. The Russian president's remarks resonate with a broader narrative of India's economic ascent, which has seen the nation emerge as one of the fastest-growing major economies in the world. This growth has not only elevated India's domestic prosperity, but has also amplified its economic leverage and influence on a global scale, making it an increasingly attractive partner for trade, investment, and strategic cooperation. The characterization of India-Russia ties as supranational by President Putin is a powerful testament to the depth and resilience of their bilateral relationship. This term suggests a bond that transcends conventional diplomatic engagement, implying a shared cultural, historical, and strategic heritage that underpins their interaction. The foundation of this supranational relationship lies in decades of defense cooperation, with Russia historically being India's largest supplier of military equipment and technology. This partnership has been crucial for India's national security, enabling it to modernize its armed force and maintain a credible defense posture. Beyond defense, the relationship has expanded to encompass collaboration in critical sectors, such as energy, space exploration, and nuclear technology. Putin's emphasis on historic trust and shared vision further elucidates the enduring nature of their bond. This trust has been forged through consistent engagement and mutual support on various international platforms. Even during periods of global turbulence, the shared vision likely refers to a common understanding of a multipolar world order where no single power or bloc dominates and where nations like India and Russia can pursue their interests without undue external pressure. This shared perspective often manifests in their positions on international governance, multilateralism, and resistance to unilateralism, creating a strong convergence of diplomatic interests. The convergence of positive remarks from both Moscow and Washington regarding India's role is particularly striking and indicative of its burgeoning global influence. President Putin's strong endorsement, emphasizing India's independent path and economic achievement, signals Russia's continued commitment to a robust partnership with New Delhi. This commitment is rooted in historical ties and a shared desire to counterbalance Western dominance. However, the unexpected development of President Donald Trump's phone call to Prime Minister Modi, wherein he reportedly softened his previous criticism of India's oil deal with Russia, add another layer of complexity and significance. Trump's earlier criticism were largely aligned with broader Western efforts to isolate Russia economically following geopolitical events, urging countries to reduce their reliance on Russian energy. India, for its part, has consistently defended its sovereign right to purchase oil from any sources that offer favorable terms, citing its energy security needs and the economic well-being of its vast population. The apparent shift in Trump's tone suggests a pragmatic recognition of India's strategic importance and its independent foreign policy choice. It indicates an understanding that alienating India on such a critical issue could be counterproductive to broader U.S. strategic interests in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. The softening of stance from Washington highlights a growing acknowledgement that India is not easily swayed by external pressure and will prioritize its national interests, even when those interests diverge from those of its major partners. The synchronized spotlighting of Prime Minister Modi by both President Putin and President Trump served to underscore India's escalating significance in global geopolitics. For decades, the global order was largely defined by the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, and later the US and China. However, India's consistent economic growth, its massive demographic dividend, its strategic geographical location, and its increasingly assertive foreign policy have propelled it into a position where it is no longer merely a participant in global affairs, but a potential shaper of the international system. The question of whether India is now the true pivot of global geopolitics is therefore not rhetorical, but a serious consideration for analysts and policymakers worldwide. A pivot in this context implies a nation around which other major powers increasingly orient their strategies, seeking its partnership, influence, or at least its neutrality in critical global issues. India's ability to maintain strong ties with both Russia and the United States, navigate complex alliances, and articulate an independent foreign policy, particularly concerning the conflict in Ukraine, demonstrate a unique strategic flexibility that few other nations possess. This strategic flexibility is a hallmark of India's foreign policy approach. While India maintains a robust strategic partnership with Russia, particularly in defense and energy, it has also significantly deepened its engagement with Western powers, including the United States, through initiatives such as the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue and various bilateral defense and trade agreements. India's capacity to balance these relationships, often with competing interests, is a testament to its diplomatic acumen and its growing strategic weight. For instance, while continuing to import Russian oil at discounted price, India has also expanded its economic ties with the European Union and actively participate in multilateral forums aimed at addressing global challenges. This nuanced approach allows India to maximize its strategic options and secure its national interests without being forced to choose sides in great power competition. The economic dimension of India's rise cannot be overstated in this context. As one of the world's fastest growing major economies, India presents immense opportunity for trade, investment, and market expansion. Its burgeoning middle class, vast consumer market, and growing technological prowess make it an indispensable partner for any nation seeking sustained economic growth in the 21st century. This economic gravity is a significant factor in why both Russia and the United States, despite their own geopolitical differences, find it imperative to cultivate strong ties with India. For Russia, India represents a crucial market for its energy and defense export, particularly as Moscow faces sanctions and economic isolation from Western nations. For the United States, India is seen as a vital economic partner and a crucial counterweight to China's rising influence in the Indo-Pacific region. The promise of India's economic future, combined with its strategic location and growing geopolitical assertiveness, makes it an attractive and indispensable partner across the spectrum of global powers. Furthermore, India's demographic profile adds another layer to its growing influence. With the world's largest population, a significant youth bulge, and a rapidly expanding workforce, India is poised to exert considerable human and intellectual capital on the global stage. This demographic advantage, if effectively harnessed, can fuel sustained economic growth, drive innovation, and enhance India's soft power influence through its diaspora and cultural export. The sheer scale of India's human capital means that its future trajectory will inevitably have a profound impact on global labor market, consumption partners, and technological innovation. This demographic reality necessitates engagement from all major global players who recognize that India's future cannot be ignored. The unfolding events surrounding the Ukraine conflict have further underscored India's pivotal role. While most Western nations have unequivocally condemned Russia's action and implemented extensive sanctions, India has maintained a more neutral stance, advocating for dialogue and a diplomatic resolution while continuing its economic engagement with Moscow. This position has been a point of contention with some Western powers, yet it has also showcased India's unwavering commitment to its strategic autonomy. The softening of Trump's stance on India's oil deals indicates a pragmatic acceptance, even if not an endorsement, of India's independent foreign policy on this issue. It highlights the recognition that India's cooperation on other strategic fronts such as counter-terrorism, maritime security, and regional stability is too valuable to jeopardize over differences in approach to the Ukraine conflict. This nuanced response from major powers reflects the understanding that India is not a subordinate actor, but an independent power with its own strategic calculation and priorities. The concept of a pivot also implies a certain degree of leverage and influence in shaping international outcomes. India's increasing participation in multilateral forums, its vocal advocacy for reforms in global governance institutions, and its growing contribution to global challenges such as climate change and sustainable development all points to its expanding influence. India's voice in international discussion is becoming increasingly vital, and its diplomatic engagement is sought after by both established and emerging powers. Its unique position as a democratic nation with a diverse population, a rapidly growing economy, and an independent foreign policy makes it a bridge between different geopolitical blocs, capable of fostering dialogue and finding common ground where others might struggle. This ability to bridge divides and maintain communication channels with diverse actors further solidify its claim as a potential pivot in global geopolitics. In conclusion, the convergence of high-level endorsement from both Russian President Vladimir Putin and former U.S. President Donald Trump through his softened stance signals a decisive shift in how India is perceived on the global stage. Putin's acknowledgement of India's independent and sovereign path and its economic successes, coupled with Trump's pragmatic adjustment regarding India's oil import, collectively illustrate the growing recognition of India's indispensable role. India's capacity to skillfully navigate complex international relationships, prioritize its national interests, and demonstrate robust economic growth position it uniquely in the current global order. The question of whether India is now the true pivot of global geopolitics appeared to be moving from a speculative inquiry to an increasingly undeniable reality as nations worldwide recalibrate their strategies to accommodate and engage with this rising Asian power. Its strategic location, demographic might, economic dynamism, and steadfast commitment to an independent foreign policy all contribute to its increasingly central role in shaping the trajectory of 21st century international relations. If you made it this far, congratulations, you have unlocked the truth. I would like to ask you a question. With both Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump spotlighting Prime Minister Modi, do you agree that India is becoming the true pivot of global geopolitics? How do you see India's independent and sovereign path influencing future world order and global conflict dynamics? Share your perspective, like the video, and most importantly, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.